welcome to why you should weigh yourself every day. Well, precisely. If you look at this line graph, so here we have a line graph. So basically, this is going to be what your weight trend could potentially look like. These are your daily weigh-ins essentially. So each point represents a different day of the same morning that you weighed in at. Essentially, why we want to weigh ourselves every day is so that we could track our trend and make sure that we are on a downward average. Let's say, hey, drop the mic, we like it. Let's say that this is your starting weight and you drop down here one day, and then the very next day you're like, well, what the fuck? Why did my weight go back up? I was so good. So this is why we track, because what we want to look at is essentially not the daily spikes, but your downward trend. Alright? So we want to make sure that your average is going down, not what the daily weigh-ins are. So the reason we do this is to essentially take the emotion out of our weigh-ins. So people who see the weight drop, they get very excited, they feel like they're on track, and then the very next day they see it spike back up. Like I said, it's an emotional roller coaster. It literally looks like a roller coaster when you do your daily weigh-ins. If someone were to weigh in sporadically, right, so they have their starting weight and they don't weigh themselves until the end of the week, right, so they might not see that they had their lowest weigh-in. They might only see that they had their biggest spike. So this is why we track every day, because you might not see your lowest weigh-in, and you might only see that you've gained weight, right? And this could be very discouraging, and a lot of people, once they see that, well, they say fuck it, and they gain a bunch of weight because they eat like an asshole because they put too much motion into the scale. It's getting as much data as possible to make sure that you are on track and on track to lose weight if that is your goal, or vice versa, to gain weight, right? So we're not looking at our daily spikes, we're looking for that monthly average at the end. With that being said, if your weight does spike up, don't freak out, right? Keep your cool, keep your composure, because this does not determine causation, does not determine your forever weight. It could just be a spike, right? And it could very much drop down the next day or a few days after that. There's a lot of reasons why your weight might spike. It could be that you had a heavy weight session the day prior, which could cause a lot of water retention. It could be that you had a lot of sodium the day prior, which could also cause a lot of water retention. It could be that you had a lot of food the night before, and you have a lot of it still sitting in your stomach when you weigh in. It could also be that you are weighing yourself sporadically, right? So you weigh yourself in the morning this day, you weigh yourself in the afternoon the next day, at night the following day. You need to have some sort of consistency so you can eliminate all the variables. And with that being said, take your pee-pee, take your poo-poo before you weigh yourself, right? So making sure you're getting rid of all those variables. There's a lot of reasons why you might see a spike besides eating like an asshole, right? And there's a lot of reasons why you might see that drop. But there's so many variables, that's why we just keep track of all the data to make sure you're on that downward trend. Some apps that I like to keep track of this: the Fitbit app does a great job of creating the line graph for you when you do your daily weigh-ins. MyFitnessPal also creates a nice line graph, and it's just a nice visual for you to see how your weight tracks and where the trend is going. Ideally, like I said, you do want that weight trend to go down if your goal is fat loss. If you're not seeing that weight trend, if you see more like a consistent linear trend, then that means that you're eating enough to maintain your weight. If you're seeing a slight upper trend, right, that'd be more than slight, but if you're seeing a slight upper trend, then that means you are consistently eating enough calories to gain weight. And depending on what your goal is, you just either want to lower your calories, raise your calories, or maintain them where they are. And that's essentially why we track every day. You can track less, but like I said, if you're very emotional with the scale and you track every now and then or once a week, then you need to be ready for in case that is the day that you have your highest weigh-in. And over time, like I said, you should see that downward trend. That is why you should weigh yourself every day. I hope that answers any questions you might have. And yeah, I'll talk to you later. Be well, be good, and peace out.